Good evening. We begin with breaking news from Scarborough, where one person has been shot by police.
It happened just after 3 this afternoon near Ellesmere and Warden. And that's where CTV's Beth McDonnell is live tonight with more details. Beth.
It's so hot, I'm dying of heat.
A man with a hammer outside this medical building around 3 in the afternoon. I had the chance to cross the street and was able to see a pile of clothing just on the edge of a driveway. Toronto police say that they shot a man who was sent to hospital with life-threatening injuries. This happened while several patients were coming for appointments. It's a busy building with lots of staff, and there have been people standing around here kind of looking in shock at what has happened here. Many saying they've never seen a police investigation like this before.
So it was like 3 o'clock. I was here for my appointment, and I saw like people were shouting, and I saw this 2 police officers chasing one guy. I believe he was in this car right here, and then he had a big hammer. But right after that, the lady police officer jumped, and then she tried to shoot him in the leg. But apparently he was shouting and holding his chest right here. And then the 2 police officers came down on him and then tried to handcuff him. And then that's all I saw.
The Special Investigations Unit has taken over this investigation. Traffic is still partly being diverted in this area. As you mentioned, this is breaking news, and we will bring you more information as it becomes available. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell.
All right, thank you, Beth. Gunfire erupted in Etobicoke last night. 5 members of a men's soccer team were hit, one of whom did not survive.
The mass shooting sending shockwaves in the community, and it's just one of several shootings in that part of the city over the weekend, 2 of which police say were random. CTV's Janice Golding is live tonight with the latest. Janice.
Hi, Michelle. So many shots were fired. Residents all around the school heard the gunfire. And many tell CTV News they and their children are traumatized. Meanwhile, family members are telling us they just cannot understand why this happened.
I know you're innocent, but God will take care of them and the kids and the wife.
Sophia Dunn lays down flowers for the victims in last night's shooting.
My son-in-law, cousin, uncle, it is not good for the community. It's very terrifying and scary.
Dunn related to 3 of 5 men shot in the parking lot of North Albion Collegiate Institute just before 11 p.m.
They were just a group of males that were enjoying the summer air and playing soccer and then taking a break after and hanging out.
Relatives say the men who were fired upon were part of this soccer team.
It is just so sad. And my cousin who passed away, the last thing he could say to his wife, I am not coming home.
One of the victims, whom family have identified as 61-year-old Delroy George Parks, would die of his injuries shortly after calling his wife.
They're saying mainly down to his tibia, down there, yeah. Multiple fractures. 3 gunshots so far.
Meanwhile, Paula says her ex-spouse Seymour Gibbs was also shot several times.
Tears isn't enough. Words aren't enough to console what has gone. We're still in shock. We still need answers.
Gibbs' stepdaughter and son also expressing their shock and grief today.
At first I didn't believe it because I was sleeping and my mom came and told me. And then I just realized what happened, and then I just started crying.
Right now it still doesn't even feel real to me. I'm just very heartbroken and saddened.
Police say the suspects approached in a vehicle and got out of the car before firing up to 50 shots.
It was like fireworks, like crack, 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 crack.
This was one of 3 weekend shootings in the area. Around 10 p.m. the night before, a man in his 20s was shot near Albion and Martin Grove, and a 14-year-old was also shot at 2:40 a.m. Sunday near Martin Grove and Rich Grove.
It speaks to how unbelievable that these situations are, that a young person walking out from an apartment building is shot randomly. A 20-year-old is shot randomly.
Police say they're concerned about gang violence and have set up a mobile command post beside the school. They've also increased patrols in the area.
It's shocking. It's terrifying, that a neighborhood like this is terrorized. My phone's ringing off the hook.
Calls from residents who say they're traumatized.
The robbing, the killing in this neighborhood and in the neighborhoods around us, it makes me sad. My son-in-law.
None more so than family members who say they can't understand why these men were targeted.
It's so terrifying. They always come here, socialize, they play the football, barbecue. And last night they were just hanging out, enjoying themselves.
I just really want it to be like resolved. I want justice.
No suspects have been identified in any of the shootings. Police have, however, identified 2 suspect vehicles, an orange or red Kia Soul in the first incident and a black truck in this shooting. They're asking anyone who has any information to contact them as soon as they can. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Michelle.
Thank you, Janice. Police in Hamilton continue to investigate a triple shooting early Sunday morning. It happened around 12:30 a.m. in the area of Gage Avenue North and Cannon Street. Upon arrival, police located 3 men believed to be in their 50s with gunshot wounds. They were all transported to hospital in stable condition. Police believe a male suspect went to the area looking for a specific person and was told to leave a residence by the 3 victims, which led to an altercation and the 3 men being shot. The suspect then fled on foot. There were about 8 people in the home at the time of the shooting. However, no one else was injured. Investigators now looking for surveillance footage in the area between the hours of midnight and 1:30 a.m.
And another triple shooting early Sunday in Bowmanville. Durham police responded to the Concession Street East and Mearns Avenue area just after 12 a.m. They found a 25-year-old man and a 22-year-old woman with gunshot wounds. All 3 were transported to hospital. Their injuries are considered non-life-threatening. Police are searching for suspects, but no descriptions have been released.
Still ahead tonight, convocation season kicks off at the University of Toronto, just steps from the ongoing encampment protest. We'll tell you about the steps being taken to ensure the graduation celebrations go off without a hitch. But first, after a cloudy, misty start, the sun came out in a big way this afternoon and some humidity in the mix, adding to the warmth out there. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. Looks like great conditions for a walk in the city.
It is, and it gets a little cooler this evening, so it'll be more manageable to spend some time outside and it not be so hot. But we are keeping an eye on this system that is slowly kind of pushing towards us, set to bring some active weather later in the week, thanks to all this heat and humidity building up. But for now, we're still kind of in that mid-20 range for the most part, feeling in the upper 20s, low 30s, and that heat not going anywhere as we kind of step into the first few days of June. Right now, we're sitting at 18 through the islands, a little cooler there, Pearson at 21 tonight, 16, but we're likely to see that fog return as we head overnight and into the start of the day tomorrow. Coming up, your full forecast. Right now, it's back over to Nathan.
All right. Thank you, Jess. Just ahead on CTV News, a family search for answers after a 16-year-old student with special needs died while left alone in a sensory room at school. The case drawing emotion in the Ontario legislature today. We'll have the latest in moments.
Today marks the first day of spring convocation at the University of Toronto, an annual celebration that looks a bit different this year.
Just steps from the site where thousands will receive their degrees, the encampment protest continues. CTV's Raheem Ladani is live tonight on campus with more. Raheem.
Nathan and Michelle, good evening. We're standing out here of Convocation Hall where graduation ceremonies have been taking place throughout the day. In fact, there's one currently underway. I'm going to get Brian to pan the camera over so our viewers can get a better perspective of how close Convocation Hall is to the current pro-Palestinian encampment which has been set up. Earlier today, organizers of the encampment held their own graduation ceremony. However, it was quite a different mood. It was not celebratory, it was somber because they held a graduation ceremony for the students of Gaza. One by one, the names of students killed during the war in Gaza are read aloud as University of Toronto students lay flowers upon empty chairs in honor of those who will never wear a graduation cap of their own.
We grieve together all of my Palestinian siblings who could not walk down the graduation hall and who will never experience the joy of wearing a gown and a hood. Each of these students had hopes and dreams in their lives and plans for post-graduation.
Standing in front of the office of the president, faculty and pro-Palestinian demonstrators continue to call for the divestment of investments in companies profiting from Israel's offensive in Gaza.
We have every right to know how and to what extent your tuition dollars, our pension funds, and in university endowment are funding and profiting from this genocide.
Just steps away, official U of T graduation ceremonies are also taking place, with many graduates wearing a keffiyeh in solidarity with Palestine.
It's important to show everyone that what we're standing for, and what the university is standing for is not what we stand for. And just because we've graduated doesn't mean we can't support Palestine and what's happening over there.
Fencing has been put up outside Convocation Hall, partially blocking the view of the encampment, which continues to occupy King's College Circle. However, loved ones in attendance for graduation say,
it's life right now, so that's what we're just doing the best we can, I think all of us. So it is what it is, and I think everyone feels safe, so it's okay.
It's pretty good that there's an encampment going on. With everything going on in the world, people need to stand up for what's right.
I think it's important for the university to acknowledge what's going on, and I don't think they've really done that recently.
In opposition to the encampment are the university and 8 Jewish organizations who say demonstrators are inciting fear and violence. Toronto police did issue trespassing notices last week, but say they don't have legal authority to clear the encampment.
We are here with one united voice to say that this hatred and bigotry have no place on campus or anywhere in Canada.
The Jewish organizations have asked the court to grant them intervenor status in the university's application for an injunction that would see the encampment removed.
This hate fest has gone on for far too long, and it is past time for those engaged in shouting anti-Semitic slogans or harassing and abusing Jewish students to be held accountable for their actions.
However, the court hearing won't begin until June 19th, after the majority of graduation ceremonies. Now, during one of the ceremonies inside Convocation Hall earlier this afternoon, there were some individuals who held pro-Palestinian banners and flags, but there have been no reports, and we have not seen any forms of confrontation or violence. Reporting live, I'm Raheem Ladani. Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Raheem. Toronto police are investigating vandalism at a synagogue in Kensington Market over the weekend. Windows at the synagogue were smashed sometime on Saturday. Police received the call for damage at around 8:30 in the morning. The hate crime unit has been advised of the vandalism, and the investigation is ongoing.
It was an emotional moment in the legislature today as the opposition asked questions about the death of a teenager in Trenton.
The boy who had special needs died in school, and now his family wants answers. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris is live tonight with the story. Siobhan.
16-year-old Landon had a condition where he had seizures triggered by sleep. It was so bad that his mother would pull him into bed with her at night to keep him safe. With that in mind, it's hard to understand how he could have been left alone at school, potentially for hours. But advocates say it was only a matter of time until a tragedy like this happened.
Happy birthday to you.
This would be the last birthday Landon Ferris would ever celebrate. His life cut tragically short at 16, found unresponsive at school. His family devastated, answers out of reach.
No parent should have to bury their child, and we should be able to trust those who are tasked to watch our children and provide and care for our children, that they will do just that.
Landon had Dravet syndrome, a seizure disorder triggered by sleep. On May 14th, he was at Trenton Public High School, where he was a student. The family lawyer says Landon was left alone in a sensory room. For how long, we don't know, but at the end of the day,
his body was cold. He did not have vital signs. Paramedics were called. They tried to resuscitate him.
It was no use. Landon's death has unleashed a lot of sadness at Queen's Park, but anger too, thinking of other families of children with special needs
that have come to this place, come to Queen's Park over and over and over again, and warned that something terrible is going to happen.
Left unattended in a sensory room. Ugh.
And so through tears, the opposition pushed progressive conservatives.
What steps will your government take so that what happened to Landon never happens again?
Taylor struggled with those emotions before a solemn education minister responded.
The Corner of Ontario and the school board have launched an investigation into this incident, into this tragedy. And I know all parties will work together to ensure this tragedy does not happen again.
Lecce highlighted an increase in funding for mental health and special education supports. But opposition leaders say the system failed Landon.
And is sadly failing children who have special needs.
If they have $1 billion to put towards expediting beer and wine sales, why aren't they putting it into our schools?
Landon's family is working on a lawsuit they hope will help get answers and drive change.
To ensure that our vulnerable children are protected.
So that this kind of pain is not repeated for another Ontario family.
NDP MPPs and advocates for children with disabilities plan to continue that push for change with a news conference here at Queen's Park tomorrow. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. And still at Queen's Park, word today, the Ford government's plan to offer driver's license renewals at retail outlets will be reviewed.
The province's financial accountability officer is taking on the task.
It was a plan met with controversy, putting Service Ontario counters inside 9 Staples stores this year.
To bring vital government services closer to community hubs where Ontarians live, work and shop.
The promise is this deal will provide more convenient access with longer hours and access to appointments. Ontario paid more than $10 million to equip Staples stores, which set off alarm bells for opposition politicians.
This was not a competitive bidding process.
The Liberal finance critic asked the financial accountability officer to dig into the numbers, something he's agreed to do.
We really want to make sure that the government is transparent with taxpayers about why they're doing this. Is it really about saving money? Is it about helping their big box store friends?
The minister in charge has said the initial launch would save some $900,000 over 3 years in what was billed as a test run.
And that's their mandate as an independent officer of Parliament. The officer looks at the benefits and the costs. And in this case, of course, we have more for less. So we're saving $1 million over 3 years, and we're getting more convenience, more access, longer hours, weeknights through till 8 or 9 o'clock, of course, at these Staples Canada locations, all day Saturdays.
They announced this as a pilot, and before even getting the results of the pilot, the government already started to announce new locations. So that sounds like there's something else going on.
Last month, the government put out a call asking if other retailers would be willing to host Service Ontario counters too. The financial accountability officer isn't expected to share what he's found until the start of 2025, and that could change given other probes on his plate.
Time is running out to avoid a strike that will snarl transit service throughout Toronto. More than 11,000 TTC workers could walk off the job Friday. They spent part of last week holding so-called practice pickets. ATU Local 113 President Marvin Alfred says the sides remain apart on several key issues.
We've made some progress, but nothing crystallized in writing in order to have some sort of sustainability for our workforce, our members going forward. It's very important with all the threats to their well-being and long-standing opportunities to be able to provide for themselves and their families. We have a mandate of trying to have job security, benefits and wages for our members, and has yet to be addressed.
I'm hearing that there's been good progress on all issues from the negotiating table. They haven't really gotten into the details on some of these issues, but overall the tenor is positive and they are moving in the right direction. And I just have to reemphasize, the TTC has successfully negotiated with 3 out of its 6 unions now. With the last deal, it went right up into the last minute. It went even a bit past 12. So we understand and we expect that something likely will occur here, where they're going to be negotiating right up until the last minute.
Both the union and the TTC have warned that any strike action would lead to major service disruptions for the hundreds of thousands of people who rely on the TTC each day.
A high-ranking Toronto police inspector has pleaded not guilty to 3 charges at a police hearing today. It is alleged Inspector Joyce Schertzer was working at 11 Division in May of 2002 when she received a call from her daughter who told her her nephew had been in an accident. According to tribunal documents, Schertzer arranged for an officer from her division to be dispatched to 14 Division where the crash occurred, but the investigating police officer at the crash scene testified Schertzer never asked for any special treatment, and she and her nephew cooperated fully. The investigating officer also testified he permitted Schertzer's nephew to leave the scene when it was determined there was no criminality involved in the accident. The officer's body camera was recorded as part of the investigation. The tribunal also heard that there was no evidence of driver impairment. The Assembly of First Nations says governments have failed to act on recommendations from the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
Today, we are calling upon all governments to increase resources and recommit to these calls for justice. We need you. To the provinces, to the feds, we need you. As the inquiry stated, the investment into solving this crisis must be equal or better than the 500 years of deficit that have preceded it. That level of investment has not happened.
The AFN national chief says just 2 of more than 150 recommendations have been enacted. It has been 5 years since the inquiry released its final report. Today, the Assembly meets with government ministers to highlight the lack of progress.
A parliamentary committee says some Canadian MPs knowingly helped foreign states following their election. That included sending confidential information to Indian officials. The National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians says there is intelligence showing foreign actors cultivated relationships with both MPs and senators. Of particular concern, an unnamed MP who maintained a relationship with a foreign intelligence officer and sought to arrange a meeting with a senior intelligence officer in another country, handing over confidential information.
Mediation talks began today between the federal government and the union representing more than 9,000 Canadian border workers. They will be in a position to strike on Thursday, and that could have a significant effect on the economy. 90% of the workers are considered essential and are not permitted to walk out, but they could opt for a work to rule campaign, which could still mean major delays. They are seeking higher wages in line with other law enforcement agencies, among other issues.
Ottawa has announced a $530 million fund to help communities stave off the effects of climate change.
The Government of Canada is offering additional support for municipalities through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to carry out climate adaptation projects.
The funds will be used to finance 1,400 projects set to be completed by 2031. Local governments can apply for up to $1 million to help cover costs, and up to $70,000 for risk assessments and feasibility studies. The minister also announced an additional $285 million to support transforming the way Canada manages wildfires. In central Gaza, Palestinian health officials say Israeli strikes killed 11 people overnight into Monday. There was a strike at a refugee camp early today, following an attack at another refugee camp late Sunday. Gaza's health ministry says Israeli bombardments and ground operations in the besieged territory have killed more than 36,000 Palestinians. It does not distinguish between fighters and civilians.
The Israeli military has confirmed the deaths of 4 more hostages held by Hamas. The men died together in the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis when Israel was operating there months ago. Recent operations allowed the military to gather enough intelligence to pronounce them deceased. The cause of death was not immediately known. Their bodies are still being held by Hamas. Earlier today, it was announced the body of a presumed hostage was found in a community that Hamas attacked on October 7th. Dolev Yehud was thought to be among dozens of hostages still being held in Gaza.
Palestinian authorities are seeking to join South Africa's genocide case against Israel. The Palestinians have filed an application with the International Court of Justice in The Hague. South Africa and Israel have been invited to provide written observations on the application that requests permission to intervene as a party. If granted, it could allow the Palestinian authorities to add an ad hoc judge of their choosing to the ICJ panel.
G7 leaders say they fully endorse and will stand behind the ceasefire deal outlined by U.S. President Joe Biden last week. The 3-phase proposal calls for an immediate truce in Gaza, followed by the eventual release of all hostages, an increase in humanitarian aid, and an end to the crisis. The G7 is calling on Hamas to accept the deal and is urging countries with influence over the group to help ensure that it does so.
In Washington, Dr. Anthony Fauci was back testifying before Congress. The former top U.S. infectious disease expert spoke about being threatened during the COVID-19 pandemic.
There have been credible death threats leading to the arrests of 2 individuals and credible death threats.
Sir, what do you think about being testimony that you are...
Fauci says the threats still continue. He called Republican allegations that he tried to cover up the origins of the pandemic simply preposterous.
History has been made in Mexico. The country has elected its first woman president. Supporters of Claudia Sheinbaum gathered in Mexico City to celebrate her victory. The climate scientist and former Mexico City mayor promised to continue the political course set by her predecessor. Sheinbaum won with between 50 and 60% of the vote, according to a rapid sample count. That would be the highest vote percentage in Mexico's democratic history.
Thursday is the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and a tribute to Canadians who fought during the Second World War will be unveiled in Normandy this week. The Royal Regina Rifle statue is already in France and will be unveiled on Wednesday at Juno Beach. The names of 458 soldiers from the infantry unit who died during the conflict are etched in the base of the statue. Thousands of Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy on June 6, 1944, in what was a turning point of the war.
Coming up on CTV News, the ultimate experience for a spectator at the Canadian Open. Called on to caddy in a pinch. The story behind this local fan's unexpected opportunity.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, it's an unfortunate part of flying. Sometimes your luggage goes missing while your suitcase may turn up within days. It can also be gone for good. If that happens, how much are you allowed in compensation? All of my reports, that's just ahead.
And after a bit of a rocky start to the day, the sun has made its way out and we're looking at a beautiful evening ahead of us. Still pretty warm though, humidex values in that mid-20 range as we approach 7 p.m. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. And of course, stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
When you fly, often check your luggage at the airport and hope you'll be reunited with it when you arrive at your destination.
Luggage can go missing for a day or two and is usually recovered. But what happens if an airline loses your luggage for good? Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Nathan and Michelle, a woman went on a Mexico vacation and her luggage arrived without any problems, but coming home, her bag was not put on a plane. The suitcase is considered lost after 21 days, but 3 months later, she still hasn't received any compensation.
Is it frustrating? 100%. Is it fair? No.
Rosemary Wysocki of Kitchener and a friend flew to Cancun, Mexico in early February. They had a great trip, but when they flew home, Wysocki's suitcase didn't show up.
I asked the guy if he could go back and look for any extra luggage, and he said, no, that was it.
Wysocki says what followed has been a frustrating process trying to get compensation from Flair Airlines for her lost luggage. She's been asked to provide receipts she no longer has for things that were in her suitcase.
They're making it sound like I lost the luggage when I paid for them to put the luggage on the carousel and it didn't show up where it was supposed to.
She says her baggage was filled with expensive items she'll now have to replace.
I had a Dyson hairdryer, which is almost $700. I had, $350 flat iron on there, plus all your toiletries, makeup.
When it comes to airline delays and cancellations, sometimes the compensation owed can be confusing. But an air passenger rights advocate says with lost luggage, the rules are simple.
From the moment you hand over your baggage to the airline as a checked baggage, until the moment they put it back into your hands, the airline is liable for your baggage.
Baggage is deemed lost after 21 days. The airline is liable for $2,300 and must also refund the baggage fee. After Wysocki contacted CTV News, we reached out to Flair Airlines and a spokesperson said, in addition to continuing our efforts to locate the missing bag, we have taken immediate action by refunding the bag fee and providing compensation owed. So Wysocki was just paid for the lost suitcase, the baggage fee, and a travel credit for almost $2,700, which was good news for her.
Shout out to CTV News, the best there is. If it wasn't for you guys pushing, I don't think I would have got anything by now. Thank you, CTV.
And more flyers are now using AirTags or other tracking devices to monitor where their luggage is, and more people are switching to carry-on luggage to make sure their suitcase remains with them at all times. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, remember this morning there was rain, there was fog, it was cloudy. All that's behind us now. We have to enjoy the here and now.
It's a tale of two weather forecasts today. I'm feeling guilty as a parent because I sent my kids in like the rain boots and I made them wear pants today and the coat, and then it must have been horrible this afternoon.
It's a little chilly. It's when you turn your pants into capris and you figure it out. You get creative. This is where fashion becomes an active thing that you can just make up yourself. It is one of those days where you have to dress for almost everything. We're still kind of in that transitionary period, but we began that meteorological start to the summer season on June 1st, and we're seeing those temperatures start to get warmer. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. A tale of two forecasts today. We saw that cloud and that yucky weather this morning, as Nathan mentioned, and then we flipped the script, we turned the page, and it became beautiful into this afternoon, but very, very hot. We're looking at some humidex values right across the province, and that's going to continue as we head into tonight and into the day tomorrow before all that heat and humidity really breeds some active weather. Tonight dropping down to 16, we should be at 12. Everybody holding on to some warmth. Even up through Parry Sound, they'll be at 15, and they should be at 9. Into the day tomorrow, 26, but it will feel kind of into that mid-30 range. So this is where that temperature shift begins as we settle into the summer season, and you have to plan extra water, the sun protection, all those things to make sure you're enjoying this summer weather safely. Dry for today, but we are watching a system pushing in that will bring some messy weather as we see this heat and humidity build as we step in towards the middle and end of the week. Not a wash by any means, but keep the umbrella handy. Through the rest of our evening, it's relatively clear. This carries us into our Tuesday as well. A few light clouds across southern Ontario, but for the most part, we're dry from start to finish. So if you wanted to get out for that midday walk, you'll need some water with you because it's a little hot outside, but at least it's dry. Into our Wednesday, cloudy to start things off, and then we see the chance of showers really settle in as we head into the late afternoon, early evening. It's a few waves of it. By no means, again, is it a wash of a day Wednesday or Thursday, but all this heat and humidity creates the recipe for showers and thunderstorms. We're above seasonal throughout our day on Tuesday through Wednesday through Thursday, a little bit closer to where we should be, and then we dip below seasonal as we head into Friday. It is relatively unsettled as we head throughout this first full week of June. By no means does it mean we're looking at a downpour all day, every day from Wednesday onward. But again, we have those right ingredients for unsettled weather. So just keep your umbrella handy, especially if you take transit or you're walking to and from your destination. As we head in towards Saturday and Sunday, things start to clear up a little bit. It is festival season in the city. There's something going on every single weekend in and around the GTA as well. So get out and enjoy it, but do it safely. Heading in towards the beginning of next week, June showers. More of this, but the good news is at least it's nice outside. I'll send things back over to you guys.
I'm Andrea Case on the red carpet for the Bridgerton Season 3, Part 2. That is Colin. Penelope is also here. We'll have more coming up after the break. Stay with us.
A big announcement today by the Minister for Mental Health promises to transform the way services are offered across the country.
And as our health reporter Pauline Chan tells us, it focuses on teens and young adults.
Thank you so much. The $59 million announcement was made at the Centre for Addictions and Mental Health. It includes $10 million for a Canada-wide integrated youth services network, specifically for Indigenous people, and $18 million for research and policy development.
More care options for youth that are free, accessible, and equitable. It will help fill gaps in the system and ensure community health organizations are better equipped to refer youth to broader networks.
Most mental illness begins early in life. In adolescence, the median age we were talking earlier of onset of mental illness is actually 14 and a half.
Clinical psychologist and researcher Joe Henderson says while Canada has been building its mental health services for youth, there has been a call to integrate those programs.
And so with the funding that's announced today, it'll really allow us to, in a much more intentional way, build those intersections so we can leverage each other's learnings, we can share with each other resources.
It's one-stop shop community mental health storefront operations springing up across the country.
Being someone from the South Asian community, there is definitely a lot of stigma that exists.
Samara Mascarena spoke not only as an advisor with Ontario's youth wellness hubs, but also as a youth who has experienced mental health struggles.
There wasn't accessible services back then, actually. And what I like about the integrated youth service model is that it is quite accessible. It does reduce stigma, and it provides holistic care that actually meets the needs of youth, including myself.
It's estimated that Canada has 6.5 million young people under the age of 25 who would be eligible for these services.
I think this is a game changer for Canada.
Right now, about 50 of these hubs are up and running, and they hope to eventually create 400 across the country. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Cyndi Lauper is bringing her farewell tour to Scotiabank Arena on October 20th. The two-time Grammy winner kicks off her 23-city tour across North America October 18th at the Bell Centre in Montreal. Her first major tour in more than a decade wraps up on December 5th. Fans will likely be treated to all the hits like this one, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Time After Time, and True Colors.
It's another step in the countdown to professional women's soccer coming to Canada. AFC Toronto offered their new Northern Super League unveiled its logo today.
More than a football club, we transform strangers into family.
In a YouTube video, the team provided a pep talk with phrases like, "Together we rise, together we change the game." The club says the T at the center of the primary crest symbolizes Toronto, with the bold angles capturing momentum, forward movement, and the rally cry of the club, "Rise Up."
The headliner for this year's Grey Cup halftime show has been announced.
What a man gotta do, what a man gotta do to be totally liked by you.
The Jonas Brothers will take the stage November 17th at BC Place Stadium in Vancouver. The pop rock band has sold more than 20 million albums globally. It'll be the second appearance for Kevin, Joe, and Nick in the city in a year. They performed there in November 2023 during a tour in support of their most recent album.
I saw people were shouting, and I saw this two police officers chasing one guy.
Updating our top stories, the province's Special Investigations Unit is in Scarborough tonight, where one man was rushed to hospital after being shot by Toronto police late this afternoon.
My son-in-law, cousin, uncle, it is not good for the community. It's very terrifying and scary.
5 people were shot late last evening in Etobicoke. 1 has died. Family and friends say they were all members of a soccer team and were shot in the parking lot of North Albion Collegiate. It was one of 3 shootings in the area over the weekend.
No parent should have to bury their child, and we should be able to trust those who are tasked to watch our children and provide and care for our children, that they will do just that.
And a Trenton family searching for answers after their son with special needs died at school. The family's lawyer says he was left alone in a sensory room. Today at Queen's Park, the opposition called on the government to take steps to ensure something similar never happens again.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca, and you can download the CTV News app. And if you ever have a news tip, photos, or video breaking news, let us know.
The price of oil is down to its lowest level in 4 months as OPEC cartel says it will soon open up the taps. Amber Kanwar has more from the B&M Bloomberg newsroom.
The price of oil has dropped to its lowest level since February after OPEC and its allies decided to pump more oil as soon as October. Now, the oil cartel has been slashing output for much of the past year in a bid to stabilize oil prices. At a policy meeting this weekend, OPEC agreed to continue to limit supply until the end of September, but may open the spigots after that. The North American crude oil benchmark sold off on the news, making energy stocks the worst performing sector on the TSX today. Now let's take a look at the closing market numbers. The Canadian dollar was flat, around 73 cents U.S. Oil prices slipped to $74 U.S., while Canadian energy prices also lost ground, closing below $65 per barrel. And as we take a look at the TSX, it also lost ground, shedding 150 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Amber Kanwar in the B&N Bloomberg Newsroom.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
If you are a fan of the Netflix series Bridgerton, you know half of season 3 is out.
It racked up over 45 million views, and there's more to come. In advance of the second half of the season dropping next week, 2 of the show's stars are in town tonight. And that's where we find CTV's Andrea Case. Andrea, it's quite the scene.
It's a crazy scene here. You can see the beautiful setup behind me. I really feel like I'm in Bridgerton right now. And when you see what the folks that are attending here tonight are wearing, everybody came out dressed to impress. So Luke Newton and Nicola Coughlan are in town. They play Colin and Penny, or Helen. Is it Pelon? Helen, they call them. Everyone has a nickname these days. And so Penelope is obviously the other person. Penelope and, gosh, I'm having a brain fart here because this is so exciting here. Anyway, needless to say, they're here in town. They're here to promote the show. Now, Netflix dropped the first 4 episodes of the season, and then they're waiting a few more weeks. So tonight here at the Algonquin Winter Garden Theatre, they're actually playing the 5th episode. So people are here to see it. The stars are here to talk about the film. They will be going on stage just before that, and tonight at 11:30 we'll have more, of course, on what they had to say. Do we have the clip? We have a clip. Let's go to the clip.
It's unbelievable. I don't think I'll ever really take it in, because I mean, we joke and say, you know, we make our show in a warehouse in West London, and then we step out into the world. It's hard. It's amazing that we've got to do this world tour, because for the first 2 seasons we couldn't do it because we were still restricted by COVID. So it's amazing to actually see the fans and meet them and like thank them for all the incredible support we've had. Yeah.
But they're so detailed and so much goes into it that the amount of prep is amazing, and the fact that Nick and I got to experience that with them this year. You know, we would go in for meetings, and you get very close to your hair and makeup team and the costume departments. You spend so much time with them, so we're kind of celebrating with them as well, which is a really beautiful thing.
Of course, their nickname is Pollen, as in the season, Penny and Colin. Okay, so the episodes, next 4 episodes drop on June 13th. Tonight, 11:30, we're really going to show you just how people are dressed. And not a lot of things shake me when I'm on a red carpet, but to see how the show has affected people really touched me today, as you can tell in this report. Reporting from the Algonquin Winter Garden Theatre, I'm Andrea Case. Nathan, I'll send it back to you, sir.
It must be special. Thank you, Andrea. Just ahead, he came to watch the Canadian Open, never expecting he'd be tapped to lend a hand. Meet the man from Aurora who scored a sudden new gig as a PGA caddy.
Tonight, Toyota admits to falsifying safety tests, halting production of 3 models.
It's certainly quite embarrassing for them.
The apology and growing safety scandal plaguing Japanese car makers later on CTV National News.
And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight. And a special shout out to those of you listening to the newscast live on News Talk 1010.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
It might be every sports fan's secret dream. You attend a professional sporting event as a spectator, but then get asked to take part.
For one golf fan from Aurora, that's exactly what happened this weekend at the Canadian Open when he was picked from the crowd and asked to help out. CTV's Mike Walker has the story.
An amazing amount of messages.
Paul Emerson says the messages and phone calls have been constant after an unimaginable experience at the PGA's Canadian Open.
So fan is now putting on the caddy bib.
That felt like something out of a movie.
We watched Shane Lowry and CTPN hit their approach shots. Then we started walking up the hole to catch them at the green. And then we heard a loud thud and groan.
Emerson quickly found himself inside the ropes on the 3rd hole, donning a caddy's bib after pro golfer CT Pan's caddy suffered an injury and couldn't continue.
So as he approached the ropes, I simply said to CT Pan, I said, "Do you need help?" And he said, "Yes." I can't believe that I'm caddying at the RBC Canadian Open. My heart started pumping pretty good.
For 2 holes, the lawyer from Aurora subbed in for well-known caddy Mike Cowan, who has carried clubs for Tiger Woods in the past, lugging Pan's equipment around the Hamilton Golf and Country Club.
CT at that moment recommended that I just, stay off of the greens. Certainly there was no reason to believe he would ask me for tips. And if he'd ever seen me play, he would know not to.
A rare moment captured by the TV cameras and broadcast for the world to see, and the messages were instant.
So actually I mentioned to CT Pan, I said, I think we must be in a featured group because my watch is going crazy. And he said, yeah, maybe you should take it off. And I agreed, but then 2 moments later, I got replaced, so.
He was relieved on the 5th hole by a member of the caddy services team, returning to being a fan with a tale to tell.
A lot of people were reaching out as I was trying to enjoy the round as a fan. Just kept getting high fives and people asking for selfies, so that was a definitely unique experience, feeling like someone people knew.
He's caddied once before for an amateur golfer, but never a pro event.
That was pretty wild. You know, like, I'm a pretty big golf fan. I made a joke about the fact that I was hoping to have a good view on the 4th tee, and it seemed to have worked out.
And is cherishing this rare and short moment on the links.
Once in a lifetime sort of experience that certainly won't happen again.
Golf Canada has offered Emerson an opportunity to play around at the site of next year's Canadian Open, which he has gladly accepted. Mike Walker, CTV News, Toronto.
Wow, he got his 15 minutes.
Not surprised. I wish they let him finish the round. He
Right?
was doing really well.
That's so cool to suddenly go from being a spectator to being part of things. But how fun is that? And what a fantastic forecast. And for us here today, we saw a lot. It was a bit of a slower start. We saw the cloud cover, the little bit of drizzle, and then the sun came out and the heat ramped up. And that's going to continue as we head in towards our evening. We are staying on the warmer side as we go through the overnight. We're sitting right now at 21 here in the city, but it still feels like 26. Ottawa feeling like 30, and down towards Windsor, it feels like 29. We are watching that line of showers that will eventually trickle its way in, but for now, still clear. And into the day tomorrow, everybody with a very high UV index at an 8, so sun protection is key. Heading into the first full week, though, of June, it's not too bad. A little unsettled, that's to be expected as we head into this summer season, but overall, we are at or just above seasonal, and I will take it.
Thank you, Jess. We will too. That's it for us, but be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a great night.